I messed up. I gave my friend some bad advice on how to paint her bathroom vanity, and I'm going to be a good friend and I'm going to go fix it for her. And this is a testament to you guys that sometimes things go wrong, but almost everything can be fixed. If you're looking to paint your bathroom vanity or maybe even your kitchen cabinets, I think this is going to be a realistic look into what it's really going to be like for you and hopefully give you some encouragement. So let's go fix these cabinets. My friend put some primer on here. She was making this more neutral from this look that she originally had in this half bath because she's getting ready to list her home and wanted to make it more neutral. I recommended the primer to her and she texted me with a SOS saying, hey, this isn't working. Will you come take a look? Okay, my suspicions have been confirmed. The blue paint under here was sealed with wax. And when you seal with wax, I don't care what people tell you, the paint is gonna repel. It is not going to adhere to this, and that's why we're getting this scratching. So what I'm gonna do is grab my carbide scraper and see how easily I can get through these layers of paint and then make a plan from there. This is coming off easy, so I think our best plan of action is to remove all the paint that's on here. I'm going to remove the doors and drawers and take them back to my workshop to work on them.
Let's see. Oh, okay. Good times. I don't think that's gonna work. Oh, I really want it to though. Please, oh my gosh, don't do that, people.
These top faux drawers are actually really easy to remove, so if you are painting a bathroom cabinet, it's best to remove them to paint them. To finish up for today, I'm removing as much of the paint as I can from the frame. Now I'm ready to load up my drawers and head to the hardware store to pick out my paint, but first I want to share with you about my new laptop. I'm big on creativity, but I could use some major help when it comes to productivity. That's why I'm partnering with HP and Intel to get my wasted time back. This is the HP Envy X360 AI laptop with the AI accelerating Intel Core Ultra processor, and it's like having my own personal assistant. I love sharing all my projects with you guys, and I'm excited to give you a peek into what really goes on behind the camera. I wear a lot of hats as the only employee of Pretty Distressed, from answering emails about brand and event opportunities to managing my website to planning upcoming projects, and it can get pretty overwhelming. The HP Envy X360 AI laptop and its AI accelerating Intel Core Ultra processor are like having productivity superpowers, helping me do far more faster, harnessing the power of AI. Typically, it can take me over 4 hours to draft a blog post on one of my furniture projects, but with a little AI magic, I can turn my video transcript into a blog post for my website in under an hour. It can even set up a focus timer to block out distractions like notifications so I can tackle my emails and tasks faster. That way I can get back to creating out in my workshop, which I know is what you want to see and I want to deliver. With more productive days, I can shut down the workday on time, which is something I try to stay disciplined in. It's really important to me to get that quality time in with my family at night, whether we are making a meal together or just relaxing. When you're a business owner, that balance is so important. If you want to learn more about the HP Envy X360 AI laptop with the AI accelerating Intel Core Ultra processor, I will link it for you down in the description box below. Thanks to HP and Intel, I can now say that I'm creative and productive. Now back to the project. I am at the hardware store picking up my paint, and I'm gonna go with Behr's Color of the Year Cracked Pepper, and I bought it in the Urethane Alkyd Enamel. This is a water-based paint that's gonna act a lot like a oil-based paint but have better cleanup, so I'm excited to share my thoughts with you on that. It's specifically designed for doors and trim and cabinetry, so it is going to be a perfect choice. Once I got everything loaded in my workshop, I'm ready to start stripping. You can just see how chunky and terrible this was looking. I can see why my friend sent me an SOS. So since the carbide scraper worked so well on the frame getting off these layers of paint, I started using it on this door as well. And it was working well, but as I got to the frame around the outside of the door, and then I'm looking at the drawers, I'm like, the carbide scraper is not even going to be able to fit in there, and I have to be able to get into these details in the corners. So I decided to switch routes and try a chemical stripper. This is my go-to chemical stripper. It's definitely my favorite, and I have had it work on a number of projects, whether it's paint or varnish. So you just paint this on really thick and let it set until it bubbles up and gets crinkly, and then I'll be able to strip it away. We could have avoided having to strip all this paint off if we would have known that blue finish had a wax on it. It's really easy to remove wax with just a mineral spirits and a rag, and we could have painted the primer right on top of that. But at this point, since we have a layer or two of primer on top of a wax surface, the best course of action is just to remove all of this and start from bare wood. Working with chemical stripper is not my favorite. It's really gooey and sticky, but it does a great job of getting in all these details. Once I get the majority off of my drawer with the scraper, I come in with more stripper and then I use some fine steel wool to get all these little bits removed as well. And I also like to use little nylon brushes to get into the corners. Patience is definitely a virtue when you are stripping paint like this, and you will go through a ton of rubber gloves. With this particular stripper, I can just use simple green to get off the remaining residue. Once everything is dry, I'm ready to do a quick light sanding on top of these just to remove any residue that might be left from the paint, and it's also going to prepare it for my primer. I'm using a 180 sandpaper to prep these, but you could use a medium or fine sandpaper. Before I take any paint to these drawers, I want them to be dust free, so I'm using a tack cloth to remove any dust that I kicked up while I was sanding.
After all that, I have everything prepped and ready to start priming and painting. Hopefully you will not have to do all these steps to get your cabinet in shape to paint. Really, all you need to do is have a clean, wax-free surface. And this primer that I'm using is going to stick to so many things. It actually sticks without sanding. That's why I love using this. This is the Zinsser Bullseye 123. It is water-based, so it has easy cleanup and it sticks to surfaces without sanding. It dries in 1 hour and it even blocks in stains as well. What I also love about this primer is that it comes in gray, which means I am going to have a really nice base for my dark, deep color that I'm doing, the cracked pepper. Having a gray base is gonna mean I have to do less top coats of that color, and I love that this comes in a gray.
I'm brushing on my primer with a nice high quality synthetic brush, and I'll link everything that I'm using down in the description box for your reference, but I am brushing this on today because I want it to be attainable for you guys and accessible for you. And I think the average person who's wanting to make over a bathroom cabinet is just going to use a brush. If you're wanting to reduce those brush strokes, you can use a foam roller. That's going to give you a nice smooth finish too, but it is going to be a little orange peely. So you just kind of need to decide, do you want an orange peel finish or do you want a brush stroke finish? The only way you're going to get a really flawless smooth finish is by using a sprayer, but I know not everybody has a sprayer, nor do they want to tackle learning how to use one. So I'm trying to make this accessible for you. And I would have used a roller with this, but the only place I could actually use the roller would be on this door. My drawers are way too small to get in there. So I decided just to use a brush on here and see how that goes. When you're brushing cabinets and furniture, the number one thing you want to look is around these edges. You're going to get drips and globs, so just make sure you're watching that as you go. Once the primer's dry, I'm just using a fine sandpaper to smooth everything out and remove some of those brush strokes, and then I'm using a tack cloth to wipe back any dust before I add my cabinet paint. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm using the Behr Urethane Alkyd Enamel, and I got it in the satin finish. This is the first time I'm using this paint, and again, I got it in the color Cracked Pepper, which is their color of the year. And this is an enamel paint that is going to give you the performance of an oil-based paint, but it has the ease and convenience of using a water-based paint. It is a lot thinner than the typical furniture paints that you see me work with on here. And another positive is that a quart is under $25, so it's a lot more affordable than the designer furniture paints, and you can get it mixed up in any color that you want. I think it would also be really great to roll this. Unfortunately, with the way that my cabinets are shaped, a roller wasn't going to help me much because I was still going to have to use the brush a lot. So I just decided to use the brush over the whole surface. And again, I think this would spray even better, but I know not everybody's going to buy a paint sprayer and learn how to use it like me, so that's okay.
These propped up on my little paint triangle proppers. It helps you get them off the ground so that they're not going to stick to the floor or to the drop cloth. You should have a drop cloth. I don't have a drop cloth, but you should have one. Initial thoughts on this paint. It is very thin, so I think it's going to level out really nicely, but because it's so thin, I'm having to watch for those drips and globs. You're gonna see those pull up mostly like around the corners and then in this detailing, so just keep an eye out for that. I have a little artist brush that I'm using to get like the excess out of those little corners.
The best part about this paint is that there is no top coat required. It's gonna dry to a nice satin durable finish. And at least 2 coats are recommended for the highest durability. On the can for prep, it just says your surface needs to be clean and free of any dirt and oil and grease. And if you have loose or peeling paint, you need to scuff that up. And if you have a glossy surface, you should scuff sand that as well. According to the can, the only time you really need to prime is if you are working with really heavy stained surfaces or if you're putting this over new wood. So if your cabinets have previously been finished and they have a top coat on them, I think you could just get away with scuff sanding and adding the paint right on top without priming.
All right, coat number 1 is done. The recoat time on this is a little bit longer than I'm used to. It's 4 to 8 hours, so I'm gonna let everything set overnight and I will come back in the morning and do coat number 2.
That recoat time is rough, 4 to 8 hours, but I waited overnight. My first coat is looking pretty good. As you can see, there are brush strokes. When you are brushing, there are going to be brush strokes. So I'm using a fine sanding paper just to smooth it out as much as I can before I add that second coat. I want to give you the realistic expectation that if you are not a professional painter and you are using a brush, you're going to have brush strokes, but try not to get so worried about them. Specifically for this cabinet, it is in a very dark bathroom that gets no natural light, so I'm probably not going to be able to notice these at all unless I get right on top of it, which no one is going to do in your bathroom. If you're dealing with a kitchen that gets a lot of natural light, I think that would be one of the times where you would want to invest in learning how to use a sprayer and getting a sprayer, or possibly a roller is going to help you get a better, smoother finish. A fun fact that I wanted to share with you: while I was working on these cabinets in my workshop, I got word that my friend's bathroom flooded. So it put this project on hold for quite the while until she could get the pipe fixed in her bathroom. And then we had to repair the wall for her as well. Her wall is very textured, but after watching some YouTube videos, I was confident that we could fix this ourselves. So I headed to the hardware store to get some spackling and some putty knives. It wouldn't be a project without multiple trips to the hardware store. This is my second trip. I think I'm probably gonna have to do 3 before we're done here, but let's head over to the house. I love using this spackling because it is pink, and when it's dry and ready to paint, it turns white. So this was pretty easy. I just had to coat the whole thing of drywall in this to prime it. Once that first coat dried overnight, I just added another layer really thick and dragged my putty knife over it to add the texture. While that second coat of spackling was drying, I just took my sander to the frame to get the rest of the paint off of it. I'm using a medium sandpaper here. Anything from 150 to 180 would work. I'm going to refinish the frame the exact way that I did the door and the drawers. So I'm using that Zinsser 123 primer. This is going to be dry within an hour, and then I'm going to be ready to add that first coat of paint. Once the wall was dry, I used a sanding block and my dust extractor to just smooth out this area. The dust extractor really helped to capture all that dust and not get it everywhere, and really saved me a lot of cleanup. There was a pretty big gap between the wall and the cabinet, and a piece of trim would not fit in here, so I tried out this caulk saver for the first time. I've seen this on the internet and it works really well. You just squeeze it in between your area there and then put the caulk on, and you have to use way less caulk, and it's so much easier and it dries really fast. And now that the primer's dry, I'm ready to add my paint. I'm gonna go do 2 coats on this frame just like I did on the drawers and the door. I'm also painting the inside of the door frame because you'll see this when the door is open, and I'm painting the inside of the door to give it a more professional look. You know the drill, this paint had to dry overnight and again 4 to 8 hours in between coats, but these doors and drawers have been in my workshop for a very long time because of the flooding, so they are actually ready to go back in here. I bought some new knobs for in here because I really wanted to do a brushed brass against this dark, deep, cracked pepper. I love the way that this looks. And I know these are faux drawers at the top and they don't really open, but I like the way that they look better with hardware on them, so I'm drilling holes and adding hardware to here as well. This is optional, but I think it just gives it a more complete look. And while we're at it, we decided to update the mirror in here as well as the lighting just to give this bathroom a fresh new look. I'm drilling new holes and putting anchors on here to attach the mirror. And we also replaced this light. I don't have any footage of it because this is a very dark bathroom and I had to use a headlight to change this out, but here is the new fixture that we chose. It looks so good with this new arched mirror. This cabinet has been through a lot. Let's see what it looks like now. This looks so good, and I think it's going to appeal to a lot of buyers as opposed to the blue, really intricate finish that this used to have on it. I really enjoyed working with this paint and I love the way that it turned out. If you want to see me use this again, possibly with my sprayer, let me know down in the comments. And I did want to show you, you need to put these little stoppers on all your doors and drawers so that it doesn't chip the frame. This project was a long time in the making, but it was so worth it. Thanks to HP and Intel for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you check them out in the description box, and I will be back with another project soon.